Do you ever feel like your best food plot setups are your worst hunter access routes? A food plot that gets consistent daylight activity, but accessing it without blowing deer out feels impossible. In this video, I'm walking you through how we planned and created secure hunter access to one of the high odds food plots on my hill country property. This isn't about walking the shortest and easiest distance to the tree. It's about crafting an access route that keeps you away from the core deer habitat on your property. We're going to talk through the terrain, how the thermals play into the hunter access, the tools I use to build an access route like this, and how exactly it all ties into the bigger picture of my whitetail habitat blueprint. Specifically, step 1, secure hunter access, and step 3, high odds food plots. If you haven't seen the full breakdown of the whitetail habitat blueprint, I'll link that video up here, and I'll also put it down in the description below. And by the way, I'm Greg Kazmierski. I've designed and improved whitetail properties all over the place, helping a countless number of landowners unlock their land's true potential. Now, this access route that we're going to be covering is a very small part of a much bigger design, but it's the perfect example of how habitat, terrain, and strategy all come together to give the hunter the edge. Let's dive in. So for starters, let's go ahead and define what exactly secure hunter access means, especially on a hill country property like this one. Now, secure hunter access in hill country isn't just about getting to your stand quietly. It's about maintaining the integrity of the core deer habitat on your property, regardless of your property's size. For this access route, we use the natural flow of terrain up the hillside to help secure our access. This low trail that we created snakes through depressions, keeping us out of view from the nearby food plot. Now, as an added bonus to this access route, along with many others that I plan out in hill country, that same terrain that conceals our movement while we enter and exit the stand is also going to help us with scent control. In the evening, when we plan on hunting this food plot, the slight depression is going to be a focal point for that downward flow of thermals that will naturally pull our scent downhill, away from the food plot, away from the core part of the property. And once we get near the food plot itself, we added in a brush barrier that runs along the edge of the food plot. This brush barrier blocks the view into the plot from our hunter access trail, and it blocks the view of the hunter from inside the plot. Now let's talk about how we built this access route. Now, all it took was a handsaw and a leaf blower. That's it. We walked the terrain first to map out how we wanted to get into the tree stand, so we used that terrain as a guide for a route up the hill. We stuck to the low spots, used trees for the cover, and stayed out of the sight from the known bedding areas on the property and the food plot itself. Then we trimmed branches and cleared the trail to bare dirt using the leaf blower. This is going to give us an ultra quiet and extremely secure access route that won't spook deer even when they're close. In a few pieces, we had to pick up some of the larger limbs and brush by hand, but for the most part, the entire route was built with simple tools and smart planning. So you might be wondering, why exactly do we go through all of this effort for one single access route? Because this food plot sits near the core of the property. It's surrounded by a ton of good cover up the hill, and it really is a central hub now for deer activity on the property. And if we blow this up by accessing it to hunt it, the deer are going to start to pattern us, not the other way around. This kind of setup, when dialed in perfect, has the potential to produce over and over again, but only if we can access and hunt it without tipping off the deer that are spending a lot of time around this plot of our presence nearby. By the way, just wanted to drop this in quick. If you're interested in how this kind of access ties into a full property plan, you'll want to check out my Next Level Whitetail SKOOL community. That community is where I share in-depth design breakdowns, do some e-scouting and some different mapping sessions, as well as show real stand setups from the field. So now that we've covered how exactly we access this plot, let's take a look at what exactly makes this food plot worth all the effort in the first place. So let's talk about what makes this food plot we're standing in what I'm calling a high odds food plot. A high odds food plot is one that aligns with the natural flow of deer movement and gives the hunters a clean opportunity to capitalize on that movement. And this one just so happens to check every box. First off, there's zero hunting pressure above the food plot until you get to the very back part of the property. We don't walk trails or hunt anywhere up the hill behind this food plot, which means that the deer feel safe feeding here even in the daylight. Second, it follows the natural flow of the terrain. This plot is built along a bench on the side of a steep hill, so deer naturally want to travel the contour, and this plot flows right with it. We added a brush barrier down the center of the food plot to break up the long, narrow shape and guide movement past our stand location. Then we built a live mock scrape using a trimmed beech tree. This adds a year-round communication hub that should see season-long activity. And to top all that off, off, we actually have a natural water hole within the plot. It sits right next to that brush barrier in the middle, and when it gets very wet out here, that fills up with water. This natural water hole is just one more reason for deer to visit this food plot, and it's right near our stand location. And of course, all of this is backed by the secure hunter access that we just walked you through at the beginning of this video. This is a plot that you can access and hunt without the deer even knowing that you're there. And you know what the best part of this food plot is? This entire plot, I created it with nothing more than hand tools, just like this access route. Now, I've spent a lot of time out here, first starting with opening up the area with a chainsaw, clearing the saplings and the small growth, using that same chainsaw, my weed whip, and some pruners, and then finally I blew off all the leaf litter with my leaf blower and then seeded it with a manual broadcaster. No tractors, no ATVs, just some strategic habitat work and some sweat equity. Now, why exactly did I go through all of this effort this off-season to develop this food plot? Because honestly, I needed the food on my property, and just where this food plot lays out, it really is a key location for deer movement. It sits within a nice stand of cover, it flows with the natural deer travel, and when I first bought this place, I found old scrapes and heavy signs right here along this bench. I put a camera on it, and sure enough, I got multiple bucks that were cruising this bench, hitting those scrapes. Now, by opening up the timber and bringing in this food plot, adding in all of the other things that I talked about, this is that focal point that deer are going to want to visit again and again. So next up, before I wrap this video up, I'm just going to break down the few different hunting setups we have, the one setup that we have right over the food plot, and then some of the secondary plots, so you can see how all of this comes together. So our food plot is built, the seed is down, our secure hunter access is fully established. Let's go ahead and talk about how exactly we plan on hunting this food plot. The first option is going to be the most direct one. This is where we're going to use that secure hunter access route that we just walked through, and then climb a tree below the brush barrier using my saddle setup for a little bit extra security. This is going to put us within bow range of multiple feeders in this food plot. The brush barrier that defines that travel, the mock scrape that's behind me, as well as that natural water hole. This is a very clean evening setup where I have a very strong chance of catching bucks coming into this food plot during daylight hours in that early season when they're on that more of a routine, more of a pattern, or even closer to that pre-rut when they just want to come through and cruise this bench, take that easy path of travel as they're ripping across the property checking for does. Now, our next stand location is in an area that we added a second water hole. This sits just outside of the food plot, tucked next to an old gate that we cleared out some of the brushy habitat to create a nice little travel funnel. Now, this stand location gives us another option for a low impact hunt, especially if the bucks are going to congregate in an area and scent check the food plot before they enter. Now, this is a classic staging scenario. If we have the wind that's dumping down the food plot towards that secondary water hole, that buck could come in, hit that water hole, scent check the food plot, and never step foot out here. And now we've also been monitoring other secondary trails around the food plot, looking for any type of subtle movement patterns bucks might use, like the J-hook, if they want to scent check the food plot, or if they want to loop in from another angle. Now, all of these setups that we're looking to dial in tie back to one thing, and that's managing hunting pressure and managing hunter activity near the core part of your property. We want to hunt at and around this high odds food plot with purpose, not come in here and burn it out every time there's a cold front. By building in multiple stand locations around the plot, we can stay flexible and adapt to the conditions as well as the deer movement. All right, let's hit a quick recap. First, we planned a secure access route using the terrain, keeping things like the thermals in mind. We built a secure access route and the high odds food plot using only hand tools, keeping things simple, showing you that you only need the basics to get jobs like this done. And we layered in multiple hunting setups around the food plot to manage pressure and capitalize on daylight movement. This is what it looks like when habitat design, terrain, and hunting strategy all come together. And it's exactly what I aim for every whitetail property that I work on. Now, if you want to see any other types of whitetail content, feel free to drop a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video gives you ideas of how you can further improve your land. Good luck out there this season.